The ocean was calm that day, its surface shimmering under the afternoon sun like a sheet of polished glass. Laura Bennett adjusted her goggles and peered out of the small porthole of the submersible. Below her stretched the endless blue abyss, a world untouched by sunlight and teeming with mysteries. Beside her, Jack Monroe tapped on the control panel, his fingers moving quickly over the buttons as he monitored the sonar readings. "Anything yet?" Laura asked, her voice soft but curious. Jack shook his head without looking up. "Not yet. Just the usual thermal vents and some weird rock formations. Nothing exciting." Laura sighed and leaned back in her seat. She had been working with Jack for 3 years now, exploring the depths of the Pacific Ocean as part of a research team studying marine life and geological activity. Most days, their work was slow and repetitive, filled with hours of scanning barren stretches of seabed. But today felt different. There was an unexplainable tension in the air, a feeling that something unusual was waiting for them below. Suddenly, the sonar screen lit up with a series of sharp blips. Jack froze, his eyes narrowing as he studied the display. "What the—" "Laura, come look at this." She leaned forward, her heart skipping a beat as she saw the strange shape on the monitor. It wasn't natural. It was too symmetrical, too perfect to be a random formation. Whatever it was massive, stretching far beyond the range of their equipment. Could it be a shipwreck? Laura suggested, though even she didn't believe it. Shipwrecks didn't look like this. They were jagged and broken, not smooth and geometric. "I don't think so," Jack replied, his voice tinged with both excitement and unease. "This thing is buried deep under the sediment. It's been down here for who knows how long." They decided to investigate further. Slowly, they guided the submersible toward the anomaly, descending deeper into the cold, dark waters. The pressure outside increased with every passing minute, but their vessel was built to withstand it. As they approached the object, the lights mounted on the front of the submersible illuminated the surrounding area, revealing glimpses of what lay ahead. At first, all they could see was a faint outline, a curved edge jutting out from the seabed. But as they moved closer, the full shape began to emerge. It was sleek and metallic, unlike anything either of them had ever seen before. The surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed almost organic, as if the material itself had grown rather than been constructed. "This isn't human," Jack whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the submersible's engines. "It's not even from Earth." Laura felt a chill run down her spine. She wanted to argue, to find some logical explanation, but there was no denying the truth staring them in the face. This was alien. Somehow, impossibly, they had stumbled upon evidence of extraterrestrial life. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. They simply stared at the structure, trying to process what they were seeing. Finally, Laura broke the silence. "We need to tell someone about this. Someone who can figure out what it means." Jack nodded slowly, though his expression remained troubled. "Yeah, but you know what this will do to the world, right? Once people find out about this, everything changes." Laura knew he was right. Their discovery wouldn't just rewrite textbooks. It would shake the very foundation of human understanding. And yet, despite the weight of what they had found, she couldn't help but feel a spark of wonder. For the first time in her life, she was standing, or floating, on the edge of something truly extraordinary. Laura and Jack returned to their research station, their minds racing with questions. The submersible's cameras had captured enough footage to confirm what they already knew. The object was alien. But they couldn't keep this discovery to themselves. It was too big, too important. As soon as they docked, they rushed to the communications room to send a secure message to Dr. Helen Carter, an astrophysicist whose work on ancient civilizations had made headlines years ago. Helen arrived the next morning, her sharp eyes scanning the data spread across the table. She was older than Laura and Jack, with gray streaks in her dark hair and a calm demeanor that hid her brilliance. After hours of reviewing the sonar scans and video footage, she leaned back in her chair and let out a long breath. "This is incredible," Helen said finally, her voice steady but tinged with awe. "If I didn't see this with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it." "What do you think it is?" Laura asked, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. Helen hesitated before answering. "It's a ship, or at least part of one. Look at these patterns on the surface. They're not random. They're mathematical, almost like a language. Whoever built this was far more advanced than us." Jack frowned. "But why is it here, buried under miles of ocean?" "That's the real question, isn't it?" Helen replied. "And there's something else." She pulled up a seismic map on the screen, showing points scattered across the globe. "These readings match the anomaly we found. There are thousands, maybe millions, of these structures buried beneath Earth's oceans." Laura's jaw dropped. "Millions? Are you saying there's an entire fleet down there?" "It looks that way," Helen said, her tone serious. "This isn't just one ship. It's an armada." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. An alien fleet hidden beneath the oceans for who knows how long. The implications were staggering. Was it abandoned? Or dormant, waiting to awaken? None of them dared to voice their fears aloud. Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly to analyze the data. Laura focused on studying the mysterious patterns etched into the ship's surface, hoping to decipher some kind of meaning. Jack ran simulations to estimate the age of the fleet based on sediment layers, while Helen coordinated with other scientists around the world to gather more information. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Laura sat alone in the lab, staring at the images on her computer screen. Her mind kept drifting back to the moment she first saw the ship. It had felt alive, somehow, like it was watching her, even though she knew that was impossible. Her thoughts were interrupted by Helen, who entered the room carrying a folder. "I've been going over the historical records," Helen said, sitting down beside her. "There are myths about ships falling from the sky, cities swallowed by the sea. People dismissed them as legends, but maybe they weren't entirely wrong." "You think someone knew about this before?" Laura asked. "It's possible," Helen admitted. "But if they did, they either couldn't stop it or chose to hide it. Either way, we're dealing with something far bigger than ourselves." As the days passed, the team grew increasingly uneasy. They knew they couldn't keep the discovery secret forever. Sooner or later, word would leak out, and when it did, the world would never be the same. Despite their fear, there was also a sense of wonder, a shared understanding that they were standing on the brink of something monumental. Late one night, as Jack stared out at the dark ocean, he whispered to himself, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" The news of the alien fleet spread faster than anyone had anticipated. A technician at the research station, eager to share the groundbreaking discovery, leaked some of the data online. Within hours, the story exploded across social media and news outlets worldwide. Governments scrambled to respond, while conspiracy theorists claimed the findings were fake or part of a secret military experiment. Laura, Jack, and Helen found themselves thrust into the spotlight. Reporters camped outside the research station, demanding answers. Phone calls flooded in from scientists, politicians, and even ordinary citizens desperate for clarity. The team knew they couldn't ignore the growing chaos, but they also weren't prepared for what came next. A few days later, an unexpected visitor arrived. A sleek spacecraft descending silently above the Pacific Ocean. It hovered near the research station, its metallic surface reflecting the sunlight like a mirror. Everyone watched in stunned silence as a smaller craft detached from the main ship and landed gently on the water's surface. The visitors introduced themselves as the Valens, a humanoid species with pale blue skin and large, luminous eyes. They spoke through a translation device, their voices calm but firm. "We mean no harm," their leader said. "We are refugees, seeking sanctuary after our star system collapsed." At first, humanity was cautious but hopeful. The Valens seemed peaceful, offering advanced technology and knowledge in exchange for safe passage. But when shown the seismic maps of the hidden fleet beneath Earth's oceans, their demeanor changed dramatically. "This is Krylos' work," one of the Valens said, his voice trembling with fear. They were conquerors, destroyers of worlds. Their fleets traveled across galaxies, enslaving civilizations and leaving nothing but ruins behind. Laura felt a cold knot form in her stomach. But these ships are dormant, aren't they? They've been buried for thousands, maybe millions of years. The Valen leader hesitated before answering. That does not matter. The Krylos programmed their fleets to awaken under specific conditions. If those conditions are met, the ships will rise again, and so will their warriors. Jack stepped forward, his face pale. What kind of conditions? The Valens exchanged uneasy glances. It varies. Sometimes it's a signal from space. Other times it's interference from another species. We cannot say for sure what might trigger them here. The room fell silent as the gravity of the situation sank in. Humanity wasn't just dealing with ancient relics. They were sitting on a potential time bomb. The Valens urged immediate action, suggesting that Earth disable the fleet before it could pose a threat. But they warned that attempting to study or tamper with the ships might accidentally awaken them. As the meeting ended, Laura and Jack walked back to the lab in silence. Both were overwhelmed by the responsibility now resting on their shoulders. They had uncovered something extraordinary, but it came with unimaginable risks. Later that night, Helen joined them in the lab, her expression grim. "We need to make a decision," she said. "Do we follow the Valens' advice and destroy the fleet, or do we try to learn from it? Either way, we're playing with fire." Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. "Destroying it feels wrong. These ships are a piece of history, maybe even a chance to advance our own technology. And if they wake up," Laura countered, "we'd be signing humanity's death warrant." Helen nodded slowly. "This isn't just about us anymore. If the Krylos return, it won't just affect Earth. It could endanger every living thing in the galaxy." For the first time, Laura realized the enormity of their discovery. It wasn't just about solving a mystery or making history. It was about survival. And yet, despite the fear gnawing at her, she couldn't shake the feeling that the fleet held answers. Answers that could change everything. Outside, the Valen ship remained suspended in the sky, a silent reminder of the stakes. Somewhere deep beneath the waves, millions of alien vessels lay waiting, their secrets buried but not forgotten. The world was divided. News of the Krylos fleet sparked heated debates in governments, scientific communities, and living rooms around the globe. Some people saw the alien ships as a threat that needed to be eliminated immediately. Others believed they were an opportunity, a chance to unlock unimaginable knowledge and technology. Protests erupted in major cities, with crowds holding signs that read "Destroy the fleet" on one side and "Save our future" on the other. Laura and Jack became reluctant spokespeople for the cautious approach. They appeared on television interviews and spoke at emergency meetings, urging world leaders to avoid rash decisions. "We don't fully understand these ships yet," Laura said during one press conference. "If we rush to destroy them, we might lose something invaluable. But if we're not careful, we could also make things worse." Their arguments didn't sit well with everyone. A faction within the United States military, led by General Robert Hayes, pushed hard for immediate action. Hayes argued that waiting was too risky. "These ships belong to a race of conquerors," he told the Senate committee. "Every day they stay intact is another day they could awaken and turn on us. We can't afford to hesitate." Meanwhile, Helen worked tirelessly behind the scenes, analyzing data from the Valens and cross-referencing it with their own findings. She discovered fragments of information about the Krylos, how they had once ruled vast regions of space with ruthless efficiency. Their fleets were more than just weapons. They carried entire armies frozen in stasis, ready to deploy at a moment's notice. The thought of millions of Krylos warriors emerging from beneath Earth's oceans sent shivers down her spine. Despite the growing tension, some countries began collaborating. Scientists from Russia, China, India, and Europe joined forces with Laura's team, pooling resources and expertise. Together, they developed plans to study the ships without triggering any potential defenses. Drones equipped with advanced sensors were designed to probe the vessels remotely, gathering data while minimizing human exposure. But not everyone played by the rules. Rumors surfaced of covert operations launched by rogue nations and private corporations eager to exploit the fleet's technology for themselves. One such operation, conducted by a shadowy defense contractor, ended in disaster when their equipment malfunctioned and triggered a minor seismic event near the Mariana Trench. Though no ships awakened, the incident fueled public panic and deepened divisions among world leaders. Amid the chaos, Laura struggled to stay focused. She spent long hours in the lab, poring over schematics and running simulations. Jack noticed her growing exhaustion and tried to lighten the mood. "You know," he joked one evening, "if this all goes sideways, at least we'll have some pretty wild stories to tell." Laura managed a faint smile, but didn't respond. Her mind kept returning to the Valen's warning. What if they made a mistake? What if their curiosity brought doom upon humanity? One night, after another exhausting day of meetings, Helen pulled Laura aside. "We're running out of time," she said quietly. "People are scared, and scared people do dangerous things. If we don't find a way to prove that studying the fleet is safer than destroying it, someone will take matters into their own hands." Laura nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. "Then we need to show them something undeniable," she said. "Something that proves we can control this." Helen's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Maybe there's a way." The Valens mentioned fail-safes in the Krylos design, systems meant to prevent accidental activation. If we can locate those, it's worth a shot, Laura agreed, determination flickering in her chest. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Laura stood outside the research station, staring at the ocean. Somewhere beneath its surface lay the answers they desperately needed, and the danger that came with them. For now, the fleet remained silent, a sleeping giant hidden in the depths. But how much longer would it stay that way? Against the advice of scientists and international coalitions, General Robert Hayes moved forward with his plan. He believed that waiting was a luxury humanity couldn't afford. Under the cover of night, a team of engineers and soldiers, operating under his command, transported stolen schematics provided by the Valens to a secret military base. Their goal was clear: activate one of the Krylos ships to test its capabilities. The chosen ship lay near the coast of Alaska, partially exposed due to shifting ice sheets. It was smaller than most of the fleet, but still massive, its metallic surface gleaming faintly under floodlights. The team worked quickly, setting up generators and connecting wires to the alien vessel. None of them fully understood the technology they were handling, but they followed the diagrams as best they could. Laura and Jack learned about the operation too late to stop it. When they arrived at the site, escorted by Helen, they found the area swarming with armed guards and frantic activity. "You can't do this," Laura shouted at Hayes, who stood nearby watching the proceedings. "This is reckless. You're risking everything." Hayes turned to face her, his expression hard. "We've been sitting on our hands while you play scientist," he snapped. "It's time to take control of the situation." Before Laura could argue further, the hum of machinery grew louder. Sparks flew from the ship's surface as power surged through its systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low rumble, the ship began to glow. Its patterns lit up in bright, pulsating colors, casting eerie shadows across the frozen landscape. "What have you done?" Jack whispered, his voice trembling. The glow intensified, and suddenly, a high-pitched signal shot out from the ship, echoing across the sky. It wasn't just sound, it was energy, rippling outward like waves on water. Within seconds, alarms blared in the control tents. Monitors displayed seismic activity spiking worldwide. "They're waking up," someone yelled. One by one, The buried ships beneath Earth's oceans began to stir. Sonar readings showed them rising toward the surface, shaking off centuries of sediment. In the Pacific, Atlantic, Indian Ocean, everywhere, the Krylos fleet emerged, their sleek forms cutting through the waves like predators awakening from slumber. Panic erupted among the military personnel. Hayes barked orders, trying to regain control, but it was too late. The first ships breached the surface, hovering silently above the water. Their presence was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. They didn't attack immediately, but their sheer number made it clear that humanity was outnumbered. Back at the research station, news of the awakening fleet spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond, deploying naval forces and fighter jets to intercept the ships. But the Krylos vessels moved faster than anyone expected, dodging missiles and evading radar with ease. Pilots reported seeing strange bursts of light emanating from the ships, disabling aircraft mid-flight without causing explosions or casualties. Laura watched the chaos unfold on live broadcasts, her heart pounding. "This is exactly what we were afraid of," she said, turning to Helen and Jack. "They're not just machines. They're intelligent." Helen nodded grimly. "And now they know we're here." As the days passed, the fleet continued to grow more active. Ships formed clusters in strategic locations, seemingly scanning the planet below. Though they hadn't attacked yet, their intentions remained unknown. Humanity braced itself for the worst, unsure if the Krylos would see them as enemies or simply pests to be eradicated. For Laura, the guilt weighed heavily. She had argued against destroying the fleet, believing it held answers. Now those answers felt hollow compared to the danger looming over Earth. As she looked out at the ocean, she couldn't help but wonder. Had they awakened something unstoppable? The world held its breath as the Krylos fleet hovered above the oceans, their massive forms casting long shadows over the water. Humanity's military forces scrambled to respond, launching every available aircraft and warship to confront the alien vessels. Pilots like Alex Turner and Samantha Brooks were at the forefront of the effort, flying sleek fighter jets armed with experimental weapons designed to combat the unknown threat. Alex was a seasoned pilot, calm under pressure but deeply aware of the stakes. Beside him in the cockpit, Samantha gripped the controls tightly, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. The Krylos ships loomed ahead, eerily silent despite their size. "This feels wrong," she muttered. "They're just watching us. They're waiting for something," Alex replied, his voice steady but tense. "But we can't let them take the first shot." The order came through their headsets moments later. "Engage." Squadrons of jets broke formation, speeding toward the nearest cluster of ships. Missiles streaked across the sky, targeting the glowing patterns on the Krylos vessels. To everyone's shock, the missiles exploded harmlessly against invisible shields surrounding the ships. Not a single scratch marked their surfaces. "It's like they're untouchable," Samantha said, her voice tinged with frustration. Before anyone could regroup, the Krylos ships retaliated. Beams of light shot out, striking several jets with precision. Unlike traditional weapons, these beams didn't explode. They disrupted the plane's systems, causing them to lose power mid-flight. Pilots ejected as their crafts plummeted into the sea below. Despite the overwhelming odds, humanity refused to back down. Naval fleets surrounded the alien Armada, firing torpedoes and depth charges in a desperate attempt to disable the ships. But the Krylos technology was far beyond anything Earth had ever encountered. Their vessels adapted instantly to each attack, learning and countering human tactics with terrifying efficiency. Back at the research station, Laura and Jack watched the unfolding battle on live feeds, their faces pale with dread. "We're not winning," Jack said quietly. "Not even close." Laura clenched her fists. "There has to be another way. We can't fight them like this. It's useless." Helen nodded, her expression grim. "If we want to survive, we need help. And right now, our only allies are the Valens." The team reached out to the Valens immediately, pleading for assistance. The alien refugees hesitated at first, clearly reluctant to involve themselves in a conflict with the Krylos. But when shown footage of the devastation caused by the fleet's awakening, they agreed to intervene, not out of loyalty to humanity, but out of fear for their own survival. Within days, the Valens provided advanced weaponry and blueprints for hybrid warships capable of matching the Krylos fleet's speed and firepower. Engineers around the globe worked around the clock to construct these new vessels, combining Earth's resources with alien technology. Laura and Jack played a crucial role in the process, helping translate the Valen designs and integrating them with human systems. As the first hybrid warships launched, hope flickered among humanity's ranks. These new ships were faster, stronger, and equipped with energy weapons that could penetrate the Krylos shields. Under Alex and Samantha's leadership, pilots began coordinating attacks using the hybrid fleet, targeting the Krylos ships' glowing cores, their apparent weak points. For the first time, humanity scored a victory. One of the smaller Krylos vessels faltered after a direct hit, its lights dimming as it sank back into the ocean. Cheers erupted among the human forces, but the celebration was short-lived. The remaining ships adjusted their formations, working together in ways that suggested intelligence far beyond simple programming. "They're learning," Alex said grimly as he guided his ship away from another failed assault. "Every time we hit them, they get smarter." Samantha glanced at him, her jaw tight. "Then we'll have to be smarter too." Though the tide of the battle had shifted slightly, the cost was high. Countless lives had been lost, and entire cities near coastal regions were evacuated in fear of retaliation. Laura knew that even with the Valens' help, humanity couldn't keep fighting forever. They needed a solution, one that went beyond brute force. As she stared at the monitor showing the ongoing conflict, an idea began to form in her mind. If the Krylos fleet was truly controlled by a central command ship, disabling it might stop the rest. It was a risky plan, but it was the only chance they had left. Laura's idea was met with skepticism. When she presented it to the team, Jack frowned and leaned back in his chair. "You want to go after the central command ship? That's like walking into a lion's den with a stick," he said. "It's our only shot," Laura replied, her voice firm despite the doubt in the room. "If we can disable the command ship, maybe the rest of the fleet will shut down. It's worth the risk." Helen studied the maps and data scattered across the table. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "She's right. If there's even a chance this works, we have to try. But getting to the command ship won't be easy." The Valens confirmed Laura's theory. The Krylos fleet operated through a central hub, likely located in the deepest part of Earth's oceans, the Mariana Trench. This command ship controlled the others, acting as both a brain and a heart for the entire Armada. Destroying it would sever the connection between the vessels, leaving them inert. With time running out, humanity prepared for one final mission. A specialized submersible was built using a combination of human engineering and Valen technology. It was small but heavily reinforced, designed to withstand the crushing pressure of the trench, and equipped with explosives powerful enough to destroy the command ship. Laura volunteered to join the team going down, knowing her expertise would be crucial. Jack insisted on piloting the submersible, refusing to let her go alone. The journey to the trench was harrowing. As they descended deeper into the abyss, the water grew colder and darker until the only light came from the submersible's headlights. Strange creatures drifted past, their glowing bodies the only signs of life in the endless void. The weight of the ocean pressed down on them, both physically and emotionally. When they reached the command ship, it loomed before them like a mountain. Unlike the other vessels, this one was massive, its surface covered in intricate patterns that pulsed faintly with energy. Laura stared at it in awe. "This is it," she whispered, "the source of everything." As they approached, smaller drones detached from the command ship, moving swiftly to intercept them. Jack maneuvered the submersible with precision, dodging the drone's attacks while trying to find an entry point. "We're not going to last long out here," he said, his voice tense. "We need to get inside," Laura urged. "There has to be a way in." Jack spotted a weak spot, a narrow opening near the base of the ship, and guided the submersible toward it. They slipped through just as a drone fired a burst of energy at them, narrowly missing. Inside, the environment was eerily silent. The walls glowed softly, and the air hummed with power. "This place feels alive," Laura said, her voice barely above a whisper. They made their way to the core chamber, following the flow of energy. Along the way, they encountered more defenses, automatic turrets and barriers that forced them to think quickly. Each obstacle brought them closer to their goal, but also reminded them of the danger they were in. Finally, they reached the core. It was a pulsating sphere of light, radiating waves of energy that filled the room. Laura set the explosives carefully, her hands trembling. "This is it," she said. "Once we trigger this, there's no turning back." Jack nodded. "Let's make sure it counts." As they prepared to leave, Laura paused, staring at the core. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were destroying something incredible, something that might have held answers to questions humanity hadn't even thought to ask. But she knew there was no other choice. The survival of Earth depended on what they did next. With the explosives set, they began their retreat, hoping they had done enough to stop the Krylos fleet once and for all. As Laura and Jack made their way back through the command ship, the tension inside the submersible was suffocating. Every sound, the hum of the engines, the creak of metal under pressure, felt louder than it should. They were running out of time. The explosives were set to detonate in 10 minutes, but the path ahead was anything but clear. The core's energy had triggered an alarm within the ship. Red lights began flashing along the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced across the narrow corridors. Automated defenses sprang to life, forcing them to navigate a maze of traps and barriers. Small drones zipped toward them, firing bursts of energy that ricocheted off the submersible's reinforced hull. "We're not going to make it," Jack muttered, his knuckles white, as he gripped the controls. He swerved sharply to avoid another drone, narrowly missing a wall lined with jagged protrusions. "Yes, we are," Laura said firmly, though her voice betrayed her fear. "Keep moving." She studied the map on her tablet, trying to find the quickest route to the exit. The glowing patterns on the walls seemed to shift subtly, almost as if the ship itself was alive and aware of their presence. It was disorienting, like being watched by something ancient and unknowable. Finally, they'd reached the opening they had used to enter the command ship. But as Jack guided the submersible toward it, a massive barrier slid into place, sealing off their escape. Laura's heart sank. "It's locked us in." Jack slammed his fist against the control panel in frustration. "There has to be another way out." Laura scanned the area frantically, her eyes landing on a secondary passage partially hidden behind a cluster of pulsating conduits. "Over there," she shouted, pointing. "Maybe we can use that." Without hesitation, Jack steered the submersible toward the narrow tunnel. It was tight, barely wide enough for them to squeeze through, and the walls vibrated ominously as they passed. Sparks flew from the edges of the craft as it scraped against the alien material. Behind them, the core's energy grew unstable. Waves of light pulsed outward, shaking the entire ship. Alarms blared louder, and the temperature inside the submersible began to rise. "The core's destabilizing," Laura warned. "We have to hurry." They burst out of the tunnel just as the first shockwave hit, throwing the submersible off course. Jack fought to regain control, his hand steady despite the chaos. Ahead, the trench's dark waters stretched endlessly, offering a glimmer of hope. "Go, go, go," Laura urged, gripping the edge of her seat. The submersible shot forward, leaving the command ship behind. But they weren't far enough away yet. The countdown on the explosives display ticked down. 5 seconds. 4, 3. Jack pushed the engines to their limit, diving deeper into the trench. At 0, the command ship erupted in a blinding explosion, sending a shockwave rippling through the water. The force slammed into the submersible, spinning it violently. Alarms screamed inside the cockpit as systems failed one by one. When the chaos finally subsided, Jack and Laura sat in stunned silence. The submersible drifted silently in the darkness, its lights flickering weakly. Outside, the trench was eerily still. The command ship was gone, reduced to fragments scattered across the seabed. "Did it work?" Jack asked hoarsely, breaking the silence. Laura checked the readings on her tablet. Her face lit up with cautious relief. "Yes. The fleet. It's shutting down. All of it." But their relief was short-lived. A warning light flashed on the control panel. The submersible's structural integrity was compromised, and they were deep in the trench, miles below the surface. Without functional engines, they wouldn't be able to ascend. Jack turned to Laura, his expression grim but resolute. "You need to take the emergency pod. I'll stay here and try to stabilize the submersible long enough for you to escape." "No," Laura protested immediately. "We stick together. That's how we survive." "There's no time to argue," Jack said, his voice gentle but firm. "If we both stay, neither of us makes it. You have to go." Tears welled up in Laura's eyes, but she knew he was right. Reluctantly, she climbed into the small escape pod, her heart heavy with guilt and grief. As the hatch sealed shut, she looked at Jack one last time. "Thank you," she whispered. The pod ejected, shooting upward toward the surface. Behind her, the submersible groaned under the immense pressure, its lights fading into darkness. Laura closed her eyes, clutching the tablet tightly. She had survived, but the cost weighed heavily on her soul. Above, the ocean began to calm as the Krylos fleet sank back into the depths, their threat neutralized forever. The emergency pod breached the surface of the ocean with a soft splash, its beacon flashing brightly in the dim light of dawn. Laura clung to the edge of the small craft, her body trembling from exhaustion and cold. The tablet in her lap was still operational, its screen displaying real-time data confirming that the Krylos fleet had gone completely dormant. Every ship had sunk back into the depths, their lights extinguished, their systems silent. Humanity was safe, for now. But safety felt hollow to Laura. Her mind kept returning to Jack, alone in the darkness of the trench. She replayed his final words over and over in her head, trying to find comfort in his sacrifice, but finding only sorrow. He had given everything to ensure her survival, and she couldn't shake the weight of that responsibility. A rescue team arrived within hours, guided by the pod's signal. Helicopters circled above, their rotors chopping through the air as a recovery vessel approached. Crew members pulled Laura aboard, wrapping her in blankets and checking her for injuries. She barely registered their questions or the warmth of the sun on her face. All she could think about was the man who had stayed behind. Back at the research station, Laura became the face of humanity's victory. Reporters and officials praised her bravery, calling her a hero for uncovering the truth about the Krylos fleet and stopping its awakening. But she didn't feel like a hero. Every interview, every speech felt like a reminder of what and who she had lost. Helen tried to console her, sitting beside her late one night in the quiet lab. "You did what you had to do," Helen said softly. Jack knew the risks. He chose to stay because he believed in this mission, in you. "I know," Laura replied, her voice cracking. "But it doesn't make it easier." The days turned into weeks, and life slowly began to return to normal, or as close to normal as it could be after such an event. Governments worked together to dismantle the remnants of the Krylos fleet, ensuring that no part of it could ever pose a threat again. Scientists studied the fragments brought to the surface, piecing together clues about the ancient race. What they found was both fascinating and unsettling. The Krylos hadn't just been conquerors, they were explorers, driven by an insatiable hunger for knowledge and power. Their empire had spanned galaxies, leaving behind legends of terror and awe wherever they went. Laura threw herself into this work, determined to honor Jack's memory by learning everything she could about the fleet. She spent long hours analyzing data, running simulations, and writing reports. It wasn't just about understanding the Krylos. It was about proving that Jack's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. One evening, as she sat alone in the lab, Helen entered carrying a folder. "We've finished translating more of the patterns from the command ship," she said, placing the folder on the table. "It's remarkable." Laura opened it cautiously, scanning the pages filled with diagrams and notes. Among the technical details was something unexpected. A message. Not a warning or a command, but a reflection. A record left behind by the Krylos themselves. It spoke of their rise and fall, of their endless pursuit of dominance, and the loneliness that came with it. "They weren't so different from us," Laura murmured, her eyes misty. "They wanted the same things we do, to explore, to grow, to leave a mark on the universe. But they let their greed destroy them," Helen added gently. "And that's why we have to be better." Laura nodded, closing the folder. For the first time since Jack's death, she felt a flicker of peace. Humanity had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, not because of weapons or technology, but because of courage, sacrifice, and unity. Jack's choice had saved not just her, but the entire planet. As she looked out the window at the calm ocean, she whispered quietly, "Thank you, Jack. I won't forget." Somewhere deep beneath the waves, the remains of the Krylos fleet lay still, their secrets buried once more. And though the world moved on, Laura knew the lessons of that day would echo for generations to come. Months passed, and the world began to heal. The Krylos fleet, now dormant and stripped of its power, became a symbol of humanity's resilience rather than its fear. Governments worked together to dismantle the ships piece by piece, storing their technology in secure facilities for future study. Scientists marveled at the alien designs, learning lessons that would shape Earth's own advancements for decades to come. Laura returned to her work with renewed purpose. Though she still carried the weight of Jack's sacrifice, she found solace in the progress being made. The research team expanded, bringing in experts from around the globe to analyze the fragments of the fleet. Each discovery was a reminder of how close humanity had come to disaster, and how far it had come since then. One day, as Laura stood on the deck of a recovery ship overseeing the extraction of a Krylos vessel, she spotted something unusual in the water. At first, she thought it was debris, but as the crew brought it aboard, she realized it was different. It was a small, spherical object, smooth and metallic, unlike anything they had seen before. When touched, it emitted a faint hum, its surface glowing softly. Helen joined her, examining the object with cautious curiosity. "What is it?" Laura asked, her voice tinged with both excitement and unease. "I don't know," Helen admitted, "but it doesn't match any part of the fleet we've studied so far." The object seemed almost alive, responding to their presence in subtle ways. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that it was trying to communicate. Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly to decipher its purpose. Slowly, patterns emerged, mathematical sequences and symbols that hinted at a message. Finally, they cracked it. The sphere contained a recording, not from the Krylos themselves, but from another species. The voice that played back through the translation device was calm and measured, speaking of peace and understanding. It identified itself as the Valen's ancestors, who had once encountered the Krylos long ago. They had left these spheres scattered across the galaxy as warnings and as gifts. The message urged those who found it to learn from the mistakes of the past and to seek unity instead of conquest. "It's a warning and a hope," Laura said softly, listening to the words repeat in her mind. She felt a deep sense of connection. To Jack, to the Krylos, and to the countless civilizations that had risen and fallen among the stars. As the weeks turned into months, Earth continued to rebuild. The global alliance formed during the crisis remained strong, fostering cooperation and innovation. Humanity looked to the skies with newfound determination, no longer afraid of what lay beyond but eager to explore it responsibly. The Valens prepared to leave Earth, their mission complete. Before departing, they met with Laura one last time. Their leader approached her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You have shown great courage," he said. "Remember this moment when you look to the stars. Not all paths lead to destruction. Some lead to friendship." Laura nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "Thank you for everything." As the Valen ship ascended into the atmosphere, disappearing into the vastness of space, Laura stood on the shore, watching the horizon. The ocean stretched endlessly before her, its waves whispering secrets of the deep. Somewhere beneath its surface lay the remnants of the Krylos fleet, silent and still. She took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze against her face. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but humanity had proven it could face even the greatest challenges. And though the scars of the past would always remain, they served as reminders of how far they had come and how much farther they could go. For the first time in months, Laura smiled. The universe was vast and full of mysteries, but she knew one thing for certain: humanity was ready to meet them head-on. Together, they would build a future worthy of Jack's sacrifice and of the stars waiting to be explored.